coffee.
Bear it is.
No, I said coffee.
Beer?
Coffee.
From the yellow streets of Springfield to the weird town of Quahog, cartoon wives have become some of the most talked about characters in TV history. They're the ones who hold their families together, deal with ridiculous situations, and somehow keep everything from falling apart. But over the years, fans have split into two camps, the ones who love them and the ones who can't stand them. So what makes one cartoon wife loved and another one hated? It's not just about how they look or sound, it's about how they're written, what kind of people they live with, and how audiences connect with them. These characters often reflect what we think about marriage, loyalty, and personality, even if they're drawn with four fingers and live in a world where nothing ages. Take Marge Simpson, for example. She's patient, kind, and always tries to do the right thing, even when Homer causes chaos. On the other hand, someone like Peggy Hill from King of the Hill or Chi-Chi from Dragon Ball can easily annoy viewers. Not because they're bad characters, but because they act a little too real sometimes. In this video, we'll look at both sides, the wives fans adore and the ones they love to hate. We'll see how these characters became so memorable, and how fan opinions tell us more about real people than about the cartoons themselves. What makes a cartoon wife loved or hated? When people talk about cartoon wives, opinions can get surprisingly heated. Some are praised for being funny, sweet, or supportive, while others get labeled as annoying, bossy, or even unbearable. But what really drives those feelings? A big part of it comes down to personality. Fans tend to love wives who feel kind and relatable. Women who deal with problems the way most of us wish we could. Characters like Marge Simpson or Linda Belcher work hard, stay loyal, and manage to find humor even in chaos. They're not perfect, but their flaws make them real. On the other side, the wives who get the most hate usually push boundaries or challenge their husbands in ways fans don't like. Sometimes they're too strict, too confident, or just not the fun one in the marriage. For example, Peggy Hill from King of the Hill often tries to be the smartest person in the room, and that rubs some people the wrong way. Chi-Chi from Dragon Ball is seen as controlling, even though she's just trying to keep her family in line. What's interesting is that a lot of this hate says more about the viewers than the characters. Some people dislike women who speak up or take control, while others love them for the same reason. Over time, these opinions have turned into memes, debates, and online lists ranking the best and worst cartoon wives ever made. So, being loved or hated isn't really about how a character is drawn. It's about how they make us feel and how much of ourselves we see in them. The most loved cartoon wives. Over the years, some cartoon wives have become fan favorites, not just because they're funny or iconic, but because they represent the best parts of family, loyalty, and love, even in the middle of chaos. Let's take a look at a few who have earned a permanent spot in fans' hearts. Marge Simpson, The Simpsons. When people think of the perfect animated wife, Marge Simpson is usually the first name that comes to mind. She's patient, kind, and always trying to hold her family together, no matter how many dumb ideas Homer has. Marge is the glue that keeps everything from falling apart in Springfield. Her calm voice and steady attitude show what it means to love someone even when they're far from perfect. Linda Belcher, Bob's Burgers. Linda is one of those characters who can brighten up any scene. She's loud, fun, and always cheering for her family even when things get weird. Unlike many other cartoon moms, she doesn't just exist to clean up messes. She's part of the fun. Fans love how Linda embraces her quirks and encourages everyone else to do the same. She's proof that being supportive doesn't mean being boring. Wilma Flintstone, The Flintstones. Wilma is one of the original cartoon wives, setting the tone for all the ones who came after. Even in the Stone Age, she managed to be the smart, level-headed one who kept Fred from going too far. She was funny, clever, and always the heart of the show. Wilma showed that a good partner can keep things grounded, even in a world made of rocks and dinosaurs. Peggy Hill, King of the Hill. Peggy is a bit more complicated. Some fans find her annoying, but others see her as one of the strongest, most confident women in animation. She's proud of who she is, and she doesn't let anyone tell her otherwise. While she might brag a little too much or overestimate her abilities, her heart is in the right place. That's what makes her relatable. She's flawed, but she's real. Lois Griffin, Family Guy. Lois is another fan favorite. She's patient, well, most of the time, funny, and has to deal with one of the most chaotic families on TV. Even when she loses her temper, fans see that she really does care about her family. Over the years, Lois has become more than just a housewife. She's a reminder that even in a crazy cartoon world, love and patience matter. From Marge's patience to Linda's energy, these cartoon wives are loved because they feel human. They make mistakes, they get frustrated, and sometimes they yell, but they always come back to what matters most: their family. The most hated cartoon wives. Not every cartoon wife gets love from fans. Some characters have sparked huge debates online, with people arguing over whether they're misunderstood or just plain irritating. In most cases, the hate isn't about bad writing. It's about how these women challenge their partners, or how they're portrayed in stories that don't always do them justice. Chi-Chi, Dragon Ball. Chi-Chi might be one of the most divisive characters in anime history. Some fans call her controlling or naggy, while others see her as the only adult in the entire Dragon Ball universe. Her husband, Goku, spends most of his life training and fighting aliens, while Chi-Chi is left to raise their family. Sure, she yells a lot, but honestly, who wouldn't? She just wants a normal life for her kids. The hate toward Chi-Chi often says more about fans wanting Goku to stay carefree than about her being a bad wife. Peggy Hill, King of the Hill. Yes, Peggy shows up again, but this time on the other side of the list. While some people admire her confidence, others find her self-centered and smug. She overestimates her own intelligence and can come off as bossy or tone-deaf. Still, that mix of pride and awkwardness is what makes her feel real. In many ways, Peggy's hate is part of her charm. People love to complain about her, but the show wouldn't be the same without her. Francine Smith, American Dad. Francine is one of those characters who's hard to pin down. Sometimes she's the sweet, caring mom, and other times she's wild, unpredictable, or even reckless. Fans either love her crazy side or can't stand it. What makes Francine tricky is that her personality changes a lot depending on the episode, which keeps people guessing but also splits opinions. Lois Griffin, Family Guy. Just like Peggy, Lois is both loved and hated. Some fans say she's the only sane one in her family. Others think she's just as bad as Peter, or worse. Over the years, Family Guy has given her moments of kindness and others where she crosses lines, especially when she acts selfish or hypocritical. Because the show leans on shock humor, Lois often becomes the target of hate even when she's just playing along with the chaos around her. Skyler White type comparisons. While Skyler is from Breaking Bad, her type of character pops up in animation too. The wife who gets blamed for not letting her husband's fun or crazy behavior slide. Fans often dislike these women because they remind them of real-world rules and responsibilities. In shows built on chaos and comedy, the voice of reason becomes the buzzkill. In the end, these hated cartoon wives are often victims of double standards. They get called controlling for doing the same things their husbands do. Maybe they're not perfect, but maybe that's what makes them worth talking about. Cultural and gender perspectives. Cartoon wives have always reflected the times they were created in. When you look back at older shows, you can see how ideas about marriage, gender roles, and family life have changed. In the early days of animation, shows like the Flintstones or the Jetsons, the wife was almost always shown as the calm, responsible one. Wilma Flintstone and Jane Jetson ran the household, looked after the kids, and kept their husbands from getting into too much trouble. These women were smart and capable, but the stories still placed them firmly in traditional mom roles. It was the 1960s version of the American dream. The husband worked, and the wife managed everything else. As time went on, that image started to shift. By the time we reached the 90s and 2000s, cartoon wives began to get more complex. Marge Simpson still took care of the family, but she also had her own struggles and opinions. Peggy Hill wanted recognition and independence. Linda Belcher wasn't afraid to be loud, silly, and confident. These characters showed that women could be more than the quiet, supportive background figures. Today, animation often uses wives to challenge stereotypes or make fun of them. Shows like Family Guy and American Dad push boundaries, sometimes in clever ways, sometimes not so much. But they also raise questions about how women are written. Are they real people or just jokes? The line between comedy and sexism can get blurry. A wife who stands up for herself can be seen as nagging, while a husband doing the same thing is called funny. Still, as audiences get more aware, creators are finding new ways to show cartoon marriages that feel more balanced and genuine. Internet culture, memes, rankings, and fan wars. If you've spent any time on Reddit, YouTube, or Twitter, you've probably seen arguments about cartoon characters that get way too serious. And when it comes to cartoon wives, fans can be downright intense. Online culture has turned these characters into constant talking points, debated, ranked, and turned into memes that spread faster than any TV episode ever could. Memes play a huge part in shaping how people see these wives. Marge Simpson is often turned into a symbol of patience or quiet frustration, while someone like Chi-Chi might get labeled as the fun police. These jokes are funny at first, but they also lock characters into simple roles: the saintly mom, the nagging wife, or the unhinged partner. Once a meme sticks, it can change how new viewers see the character before they've even watched the show. Fan rankings also fuel the love-hate cycle. You'll find endless lists titled things like Top 10 Best Cartoon Moms or Most Annoying Animated Wives. The comment sections under those videos are often full of arguments, people defending their favorites like they're real friends. Some fans even go deeper, analyzing how certain wives would behave in real life or comparing their relationships to their own. The internet also gives old shows new life. A clip from The Simpsons or Family Guy can suddenly go viral again, bringing back discussions that started years ago. Younger fans join the conversation, often seeing these characters through a modern lens, which can completely change the verdict on who's loved and who's hated. In the end, the internet keeps these cartoon wives alive long after their shows air. Every meme, ranking, and fan post adds another layer to their legacy, turning fictional women into symbols of what we laugh at, argue about, and even relate to in real life. The psychology behind audience reactions. It's easy to laugh at cartoon characters, but the way people react to them actually says a lot about human behavior. When fans love or hate a cartoon wife, it usually isn't just about the show. It's about what that character represents. For example, many people see parts of themselves in characters like Marge or Linda. They deal with daily stress, hold their families together, and somehow stay positive. When viewers see that kind of strength and patience, it feels comforting. It's like seeing the best version of how we'd want to handle our own lives. But then there are the characters who hit a nerve. The ones people call annoying or controlling. Characters like Peggy Hill or Chi-Chi often get that label because they remind viewers of real people in their lives. A strict parent, a demanding boss, or even their own flaws. Instead of admitting that connection, it's easier to say, "I hate that character." There's also something about cartoons that makes people feel free to judge without guilt. Since the characters aren't real, fans can project whatever they want onto them. They can call them heroes, villains, or anything in between. Over time, those strong opinions create emotional bonds, even if they're built on frustration. And finally, there's nostalgia. People tend to love the cartoon wives they grew up watching, even if the characters weren't perfect. A kid who loved Marge or Wilma might grow up and realize they were far more complex than they seemed. Nostalgia softens the flaws and makes the good moments stand out more. So when you think about it, loving or hating a cartoon wife isn't really about her personality. It's about how she makes people feel about themselves. Conclusion: love, hate, and the legacy of animated wives. Whether you love them or can't stand them, cartoon wives have left a lasting mark on pop culture. They've been the heart of families, the voice of reason, and sometimes the butt of the joke. But they've always been there, holding their animated worlds together. Characters like Marge Simpson, Linda Belcher, and Wilma Flintstone remind us that warmth and patience never go out of style. They show strength in simple ways, keeping calm, staying loyal, and finding humor in the chaos. On the flip side, women like Peggy Hill, Chi-Chi, or Lois Griffin prove that not every wife has to be perfect to be interesting. Their flaws make them more human, even in a world made of jokes and exaggeration. As animation evolves, so does the way these wives are written. Modern shows are giving them more depth, more stories, goals, and independence. They're no longer just the mom or the wife. They're characters with full lives of their own. In the end, love and hate come from the same place: passion. Fans care because these women feel real, even when they're drawn in two dimensions. That connection is what keeps them alive in memes, debates, and memories long after the credits roll. So whether you're team most loved or team most hated, one thing's for sure: these cartoon wives will keep sparking conversations for generations to come.